Good evening, everyone. Thank you to coming to the Standards Committee this night. And Rebecca, I can see that you're online.
Evening.
Evening. Do we have
From
any?
Cornwall.
Yeah. Do we have any apologies?
Apologies from Caroline Smith, Melanie de Jong, and Rebecca is on Teams, as you can see.
Yeah. Page 5 has got. I'll give you a minute, Sally. Yeah. Right, minutes of the previous meeting on page 5. Are you happy that I sign them as a correct record of the meeting? Yeah, yeah, thank you. Are there any declarations of interest? No? Do we have any public questions?
No questions, Chair.
No questions from the parish or towns or councillors?
None of any of those.
Okay. Item 18, update on Councillor Code of Conduct complaints. Andrew.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So this is on pages 9 to 16 on your agenda. So in many ways it's the usual report that you see at every meeting, but there is some additional information around benchmarking, and I thought just to mix it up a little bit, we'd actually start with Appendix C, which is on page 15. And you asked at a previous meeting for some comparative information between Wokingham and the other Berkshire authorities. So what you've got on page 15 there is what I was able to pull together from publicly available information, most of which relates to the year 2024-25 across the 6 authorities. You'll see, though, that West Berkshire data is for 23-24, and the Bracknell Forest data isn't available in one place. It's just available if they have any individual hearings panels for any member code of conduct complaints. What I would say, and I'd say this sort of with any benchmarking type information, it comes with a health warning. It's difficult to draw too many sort of definitive conclusions from this, but I think there is some sort of consistent messages here. I think if you compare Wokingham, for example, to West Berkshire, you'll see we're sort of very similar in terms of the numbers of complaints. I would say, and you can see with Slough and Reading, that they appear on paper at least to have a lower level of complaints. One of the things that's become clear to me, sort of talking with my fellow monitoring officers across Berkshire, is that different councils take different approaches to the way that they deal with complaints. So, for example, if a complaint is of such a low threshold and so minor, it would never actually get into a public report. Whereas in Wokingham, we've been very consistent in terms of reporting to the committee everything that's come across the door in terms of complaints, even those very minor ones. So I think we sort of compare quite well, and you can see that in terms of all of the councils, the vast majority of complaints that councils receive in Berkshire generate a finding of no breach of their code of conduct. Happy to take any questions on that in a minute, Chair, but if I just move on to the rest of the report then, and if I move to Appendix B, which is at the foot of page 13. So this just gives you some details of the one historic complaint that we have in the system at the moment. And we have made some progress since the last meeting of the Standards Committee back in July, in that there has been a hearings panel convened that met on the 15th of September, comprising members of the Standards Committee. As you'll see in the information there, though, that meeting was adjourned to ask the investigator to gather some additional information that the panel felt would be helpful in terms of reaching their decision. The investigator has compiled that information now, and Neil is just in the process of finding a date for the panel to reconvene to conclude the hearing on that particular case. So that's the historic complaint. Finally, if I move to Appendix A, so this just gives you a list of all the current complaints that we've got in 2025-26. And you can see that since the committee last met back in July, there were 5 new complaints that are recorded in that appendix. Also verbally, I'd report that since this agenda was published, I've had a further 2 complaints come to me. They're about the same councillor and it's the same incident. So it's essentially sort of 1 complaint, but 2 separate people have reported that to me. So just to give you just a final bit of an update in terms of the progress of the ones that say they're ongoing. So you'll see on page 12, there are 4 complaints that are ongoing. WBC 5, that one has been concluded today. It's just with the independent person for them to make any final comments on it, but subject to anything from the independent person, that will result in a no breach finding as well. The other 3 there, there's a little bit more work to go, but those are more recent complaints going back from mid-September and then into this month. So I would say obviously we're not quite on track in terms of performance, and things don't always move as quickly as I would like them to move, but I think certainly if we compare to where we were a few years back in terms of dealing with complaints, I think we're in a much better place overall, and I'm confident that the ones that are referred to as ongoing will be dealt with in the next few weeks. Just one final thing I'd say, you'll see on WBC 1 and WBC 2 that there was a finding of no breach on that complaint. One of the things that I'm intending to do as monitoring officer is provide a little bit more information to councillors, and I'll share this with the clerks of towns and parishes as well, around that concept of capacity. And you might recall when we've been doing a little bit of training about how code of conduct complaints are dealt with, one of the first tests that I make when they come in is to consider whether or not the councillor was acting as a councillor or they were in their private capacity. And sometimes that's a very easy judgment. If a councillor is at a public council meeting, then that's very clear and clear cut. And then sometimes sort of a very private personal event, not open to the public, that's very clear cut as well. But there's quite a grey area in the middle where there's a judgment to be made. So I think that's something that would be useful both for the Standards Committee but more broadly, just to have a little bit of sort of advice and guidance around that, which again may help in terms of understanding where the code of conduct applies and where it doesn't apply. But Chair, very happy to take any questions or comments that members have got on any of that.
Sam.
Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to say, comment from I just really say that really appreciate the improvements that we've seen. I think over the last year, I think clearly I think when I first started coming to this committee, I don't you've got a few historical ones that were on there for quite a while, and I think it's nice to see that there's only one now from 24, and everything else I can see on here is it's fairly recent. So just wanted to say thank Andrew and the team who are involved in this. So thank you for moving things along.
Any more questions? No. Andrew, could I ask about social media and about members' comments on there? How are they monitored, and what advice would you give to members about commenting, particularly on Facebook that's open to the world, or seems to be?
Yes, it seems to be a sort of perennial question, and I think you'll see from Appendix A there that an increasing number of complaints are relating to something that a councillor has either posted or commented on social media or X or wherever. It tends to be Facebook in particular that seems to be a place that generates concerns from residents. It's a statement of the obvious, isn't it? But when a councillor posts on Facebook, it's irrefutable in the sense that it's written down, it's there, it's not like a verbal conversation. So I guess the best advice is to just take care with what you say on Facebook. Sometimes I understand, and I'd say this as a council officer, and I'd say it as a private individual as well, it can be easy to get sucked into a debate on Facebook, and sometimes you could end up saying more than you would intend to say. So I think that the key thing is really around taking care on the use of social media, but it's always a balance, isn't it? Because as elected representatives, Facebook is also a great window and interaction with your residents, and that's the other side of the coin, that there's a lot of value in that as well in terms of discharging your role. So I think it's something obviously to be aware of, because you can see that from the statistics that the public increasingly sometimes are quite quick to feel that they've been disrespected or the code hasn't been met. But that's my best advice I can say today.
Thank you. Any more questions? Any comments? Well, is that the quickest meeting on record?
No.
Nearly.
Chair, I was just, if we finish that item, I was just going to ask through you, Chair, sort of in terms of the meetings of the Standards Committee. Obviously, this is a very short meeting. The council next month is considering its schedule of meetings for 26-27, and every year we've got 4 Standards Committee meetings scheduled in the year. Clearly it's up to the committee itself to decide whether it thinks 4 is the right number. It could be that you believe 4 is the right number, but possibly on occasions there might be opportunities, or it might be appropriate to cancel a meeting if there wasn't significant business to do. But I just wanted to raise that through you, Chair, in terms of any thoughts that the committee have about that for future years.
Thank you. What do members think?
Sounds like a good idea. If there's not enough to actually have a meeting, why should we have a meeting?
Sam?
Yeah, no, thank you for raising it, Andrew. I think definitely, I'm happy to, I appreciate at the moment it's 4, but I think, if we leave the ball in your court to say, look, if there's one that comes up, which is that there's a less, to discuss, then happy to combine it with the next one.
Sally, any view?
I'd like it to stay at 4 rather than reducing, if that's something that's being considered, because I think quarterly is probably good, but I know that over the years the odd one here and there has been cancelled because it hasn't been any business, and I'm okay with that. So.
My feeling...
Rebecca's got a hand up.
Oh, sorry, Rebecca.
Thank you, Beth. I was just wondering if we went down to 3, so every 4 months, and then we had the ability to call a meeting if we needed to in between, because the fact that we've had to cancel and we have very little on the agenda, and we get the papers well in advance and we can look at the briefing from Andrew, but just wonder whether we maybe look at dropping 1. That would be my opinion.
Thank you. I think in the light of other things that we talk about in other meetings, climate change, pleasure time, time to relax, and the heavy workload that we carry, it might be an idea to cut the meetings down. Each one of us is, excuse me, driven here this evening, and the officers have done a long day. So I'm happy to cut the meetings down. If there is an occasion where we are somehow overloaded with business, we could call an additional meeting, although that's not easy to fit into the diary. But we do meet quite often for hearings anyway, so some of us around quite a lot in the day. So I'm happy, Andrew, to cut the meetings down either to 2, if you think that's sufficient, or to 3.
Well, I was just going to respond to taking Sally's point in particular, but respond to Rebecca's point about maybe 3, but with that option to call a meeting any time. But
Sorry, just an observation. You noted that we're all around for hearings anyway. There are 3 people who are non-voting members of the committee that are not, because we're town and parish representatives. So just to flag that.
okay, so I think just wanted to make sure I've understood what the committee wants. I think what I'm hearing is for the timetable of meetings for 26-27 to move to 3 dates, so once every 4 months. What I was going to just ask, without wanting to prolong the meeting any further, but maybe there's also sort of something more that I could be providing outside of the formal meetings. So again, I don't want to sort of create additional work unnecessarily that isn't going to be of value, but I mentioned earlier about a briefing that will be for all councillors around the point about capacity. But certainly if any members of the committee have got points like that they think would be value, we can do that outside of a formal meeting.
I think 3 is a good idea than reducing it further, because with the latest trend in the last 2 months, the social media thing has gone up, and I don't see the trend going down, and I can only see it going up. So probably, yeah, let's keep it, especially with elections in May. Yeah, we might see some nasty stuff. So.
So have a safe journey home, and you'll be back in time for supper. Sally?
I know we don't have any other business, and I probably should have dropped an email to Andrew, but I only just thought of it just this evening. We did talk about there was a survey last year, I think it was, that went round to the borough councillors around harassment of councillors for being councillors, and it was asked if that could be rolled out to the towns and parishes. I've not seen anything from either one that I'm on. I'm just wondering if that is something that did happen and just wasn't pushed out by the clerks, if the clerks forum thought it wasn't a good idea, or if it is something that is still pending and perhaps could be resurfaced at some point.
I'd need to check exactly what happened in terms of were the clerks contacted around that. So I'll take that as an action away from tonight's meeting. One thing that's related to that, though, because I remember the committee did ask me about this as well, is in terms of briefings for councillors by Thames Valley Police, and there have been a number that have happened over the last year or so, which I know parish councillors have been invited to as well. And I have been in contact just recently with TVP to see if they've got any more briefings scheduled. So I'll certainly make sure that towns and parishes are kept up to date with that. But I'll pick up that first point as well, Sally.
Thank you. Nice to see you, everyone, even though it was short. Could you say short and sweet? Yeah. Okay, lovely. Have a safe journey home.
Good night, everybody.